Hey everyone, it's me, Nisi. I had did a pre-recorded video earlier, and I did it with my iPhone, and it's not connecting. It's not uploading, and I have it on Wi-Fi, so I'm not sure why. So I am going to redo this video, and it's going to be right at an hour. So if you have time to hang out with me and listen, I'd really appreciate it. I read from several different texts. I'm going to read from 4 different books, and I'm going to kind of give a summary, of everything that I've read. And actually, I'm going to read from 5 different books. I'm going to start off with reading this, okay? Everything you need to know, but we're never told, David Icke. There's one particular section that I bookmarked that I want to read. And thank you for joining me for those who do see this video. It says, the all that there is, the all that is. We are awareness, a state of being aware. Everything else is detail and illusion. We are not our body. We are that which is aware and experiencing through the body. Awareness in the purest sense has no form, but let me read that again because that's got to stick to you guys. Awareness in the purest sense has no form, but it can experience through form. In its most expanded state, it is not even energy. It just is. Our awareness is an expression of the totality of awareness. Hence, some religions and native peoples speak of being aspects or children of God or the Great Spirit. What I call infinite awareness. It is endless and very various forms. This serves the manufactured and enslaving belief that we are all insignificant, detached, isolated, and powerless. None of this is true. On the deepest of levels, but it serves the agenda of human control by the peddling and acceptance of impotence, servitude, and know your place. Very well said, Mr. David Icke. The next book I want to read is part of the Toltec, or the Four Agreements. And I'm going to read this one that says the Four Agreements. And I'm going to read this section. It'll make sense. We're doing it in little doses, but I want to make sure that you kind of get where I'm coming from. So it says in this little section, it says, living is easy with eyes closed, misunderstanding all you see. That's from John Lennon. It says, the smoky mirror. 3,000 years ago, there was a human just like you and me who lived near a city surrounded by mountains. The human was studying to become a medicine man, to learn the knowledge of his ancestors, but he didn't completely agree with everything he was learning. In his heart, he felt there must be something else. One day, as he slept in a cave, he dreamed that he saw his own body sleeping. He came out of the cave on the night of a new moon. The sky was clear, and he could see millions of stars. Then something inside of him that transformed his life forever. He looked at his hands, he felt his body, and he heard his own voice say, I am made of light. I am made of stars. He looked at the stars again, and he realized that it's not the stars that create light, but rather light that creates the stars. Everything is made of light, he said, and the space in between isn't empty. And he knew that everything that exists is one living being, and that the light is the messenger of life, because it is alive and contains all information. Then he realized that although he was made of stars, he was not those stars. I am in between the stars, he thought. So he called the stars the tonal, and the light between the stars the nagal. And he knew that what created the harmony in space between the two is life or intent. Without life, the tonal and nagal could not exist. Life is the force of the absolute, the supreme, the creator who creates everything. This is what he discovered. Everything in existence is a manifestation of the one living being we call God. Everything is God. And he came to the conclusion that human perception is merely light perceiving light. He also saw that matter is a mirror. Everything is a mirror that reflects light and creates images of that light. And the world of illusion, the dream, is just like smoke, which doesn't allow us to see what we really are. The real us is the pure love, a pure light, he said. The realization changed his life. Once he knew what he really was, he looked around at other humans and the rest of nature, and he was amazed at what he saw. He saw himself in everything, in every human, in every animal, in every tree, in the water, in the rain, in the clouds, in the earth. And he saw that life mixed the tonal and the naga in different ways to create billions of manifestation of life. In those few moments, he comprehended everything. He was very excited and his heart was filled with peace. He could hardly wait to tell his people what he had discovered, but there were no words to explain it. He tried to tell others, but they could not understand. They could see that he had changed, that something beautiful was radiating from his eyes and his voice. They noticed that he no longer had judgment about anything or anyone. He was no longer like anyone else. He could understand everyone very well, but no one could understand him. They believed that he was an incarnation of God, and he smiled when he heard this, and he said, "It is true, I am God, but you are also God. We are the same, you and I. We are images of light. We are God." But still the people didn't understand him. He had discovered that he was a mirror for the rest of the people, a mirror in which he could see himself. Everyone is a mirror, he said. He saw himself in everyone, but nobody saw him as themselves, and he realized that everyone was dreaming, but without awareness, without knowing what they really are. They couldn't see him as themselves because there was a wall of fog or smoke between the mirrors. And that wall of fog was made by the interpretation of images of light, the dream of humans. Then he knew that he would soon forget all that he had learned. He wanted to remember all the visions he had had, so he decided to call himself the smoky mirror, so that he would always know that matter is a mirror and the smoke in between is what keeps us from knowing what we are. He said, "I am the smoky mirror because I am looking at myself and all of you, but we don't recognize each other because of the smoke in between us. That smoke is the dream, and the mirror is you, the dreamer." Now, I want to shift gears a little bit because we've talked about what we are in various texts. And on camera, you see me as I hate to use this crayon color, crayon colors, black, like this book, but I am not black. I am indigenous to the earth. I'm a Thothiness to this earth. And we all have a sense of self. And I think some people will say, "Oh, okay, she's talking about the stars. She's talking about, your birthday and how you identify yourself." I'm simply speaking to the point of, in this light, in this life that I'm living in this avatar body, I have been identified as a black female. And to the outside world, reality is we all judge each other based off the color of our skin, education, religion, money, worth, whatever. And that's just how the world is. Until you shed your separate self, you will never see that. You won't know that it's the ego that's talking, that it's this separate illusion that we've created, and we've had help by some evil entities that have helped to dumb us down and pretty much chemically castrate us to the point of some are waking up, but not fast enough. So I was going to read out of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. I was going to read out of the Lost Teachings of Atlantis and also Blackroots Science to bring this home. What I am going to do is I'm going to read a section where Thoth in Tablet 1, he talks about Down through the ages I've lived, seeing those around me taste of the cup of death and return again in the light of life. Gradually, from the kingdoms of Atlantis, past ways and consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by the spawn of a lower star. And that is the lower consciousness. It could also mean lower beings that are coming into these reality tunnels or portals. It could mean that we are in our animalistic nature and that we have fallen in consciousness. We're identifying on the left brain instead of the right brain, which is the higher consciousness. We haven't learned to balance our energies within our bodies and to have the energy flow to where this becomes, we have millions of magnetite crystals that vibrate in our head. Our brain is an organic computer, and we have a third eye here that is calcified and somewhat closed. When it is open and it is completely on and it's not calcified, it is said that you become enlightened and you understand what this ethos is and you have a direct connection with the creator of all or source. We already have that. Our connection has been, it's been run interference based on the satellite grids and the electrical grid that's above us because we're operating on electricity instead of magnetism, and that is hurting us. The foods, the GMO, the fake food they're selling in the stores, the water's been contaminated from the stuff that they're spraying in the skies. So this world is not the way it used to be. Obviously, we know that. And so we're being used as food and we're vibrating at a lower level. That's my point. So when he says spawn of a lower star, there's many aspects to that statement. Is what I'm saying. It's what I'm alluding to. In obedience to the law, the word of the master grew into a flower. Downward into darkness turned the thoughts of the Atlanteans, until at last in his wrath arose from the Aguanti, the dweller. Speaking the word, calling the power deep in the earth's heart, the sons of Amente heard and hearing directed the changing of the flower of the fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting using the logos, which is the word, the logos, until the great fires changed its direction. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance until only the temple of light was left standing on the great mountain on Undal. Still rising out of the water, some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. Called to me then my master, saying, gather you together, my people, take them by the arts ye have learned of far across the waters, until you reach the land of the heavy barbarians, dwelling in caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. Gather I then my people, and entered the great ship of the master. Upward we rose into the heaven. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanishing from earth until the time appointed was the great temple. Now he's taken a ship full of people to the caves where the hairy barbarians are. Now I want you to shift gears and I want you to listen to this. This is just a little section that I'm going to read, and then we're going to drive it home with the point. It says, all things without exception are contained in God. God will experience all that is contained in him or her. He, she knows all, but has not experienced all. He or she uses the creation for the purpose of experiencing all that is known, including what is called, and hence 6,000 years ago, a God by the name of Yahweh. And I don't want to use that word God as lowercase g in my eyes. Another being enters into this picture. The Elohim, actually. Yahweh, who was also called Yakub, is another ancient, in other ancient scripts, was born here on earth. He, together with about 60,000 volunteers who called the Elohim, made the non-blacks in our image. They made them by suppressing the dominant gene and slowly unfolding the recessive light gene over a period of 7 generations of offspring, or 200 years. This caused the appearance of the first light race born to black people. After another 200 years of deliberate and carefully breeding, they caused the second light race to appear out of the first. Then 200 years later, the third race appeared, and finally 66 years after the appearance of the third race, which is the yellow race, the fourth, the Caucasian, appeared. These 60,000 people, Yahweh and the Elohim, thus initiated the modern age and the process that would eventually bring our divine kingdom to a temporary end. So we know that the Caucasian race is the newest or youngest race on this planet, which I already knew, not even from reading this book, but I knew from other things. So we know that Yakub, or Yahweh, is part of a faction of the Elohim that created multiple races, and over time they came up with the latest or the newest race, which is the Caucasian race. Now the Elohim is also considered to be Thoth Hermes. He is part of the Elohim, or the Anunnaki, those who came from heaven to earth. And we know that based on the Sumerian tablets. Incidentally, I may do a video on how to go online and look the tablets up for yourselves. It's always great to have the books. I have the books, but it's also good to have a digital copy of it too. And you have to go on UCLA's CDLI library and create an account, and then you can read the text. My final text is going to be reading from my favorite book, The Lost Teachings of Atlantis. None other than Thoth Hermes. And the part that I want to talk about is the fact that the religion that is not a religion, the children of law of one, is a spiritual way and also a monastic order, even an attempt to influence only to educate and reflect the truth. So they don't sway you in your beliefs. This is just something that they teach and you identify with it and it resonates with you, along other things that you have to do. But I want to read the section to the fall, and then we're going to wrap up, because I don't want to read this whole entire chapter. I'm skipping ahead to page 48 where it says the fall, okay? And it says, this book denotes an entire chapter to the history of the children of the law of one, from Genesis prior to Atlantis to the present, directly translated from the ancient text in my accounts of recent developments. But in the following segment, Noah, who is this gentleman's teacher, John Peniel, had just briefly described the specific aspects of the history which led to the creation of the children. You've heard of Darwin, you've heard of Genesis, now you're about to hear another theory, the first one that made sense to me. And according to the Atlantean teachings, Genesis is actually a simplified, loose allegory based on this. The historical records start with the premise that there is one great being, God or universal spirit, that is all things, including the universe itself. And we know that because we've just read that. It divides itself, it multiplies within itself to create us. Thus, our history begins with all of our humans essentially being part of one with God. The records describe us as being spiritual or angelic beings free to roam, create, enjoy the universe. The teachings go on to say that our beginnings on earth came in two steps: a first wave and a second wave of human or semi-human materialization into physical bodies on earth. At that time, we had the ability to instantly alter our vibration and instantly create anything we desired with a mere thought. It was in the way that we thought ourselves into matter, into material existence on earth, which began our fall from our angelic state and oneness with God. You had probably heard of the mythological creatures such as the Minotaur, Centaur, and Mermaid. The Minotaur had a bull's head and a human body. The Centaur, a human head and a torso with a horse's body. You may also have seen pictures of Egyptian gods with human heads and human bodies, or animal bodies and human heads like the Sphinx. In the Pacific regions, ancient drawings and carvings of bird-headed humans can be found on both sides of the ocean. Why do you think so much of this exists? Many legends and myths have some foundation in fact, and this is no exception. The ancient teachings from Atlantis reveal that such creatures did indeed exist, and that their origins were not what you might expect. They were the fallen angel beings from the first wave of materialization on the earth. And it says the first wave of materialization was a terrible mistake. First wave beings materialized as partly human and partly animal creatures. This is why in the story of Lucifer, as the various creatures that were called devils or demons, they were part goat. This is why goats have become associated with the devil also, but evil is an entirely different matter. Think not that evil does not exist, but true evil disguises itself and points the finger to the innocents. So it says it was a mistake at first, and this is why our teaching methods are so stringent. We must keep the truth straight and consistent, and this has been assured by our forebearers. Getting back to the primary teaching today, there were more than fallen angels than Lucifer, and yeah, there are more entities. And they took many different part animal forms. For ease of description, we will call them part human, part animal beings that fell into the physical vibration to matter during the first wave of materialization, humanimals. As soon as the first wave began materializing in their human animal bodies, they suffered a great fall in vibration from that previous spiritual angelic state of existence. They instantly experienced a near total loss of consciousness, awareness, and intelligence. In less than a twinkling of an eye, the consciousness that just moments before had encompassed the entire universe and experienced oneness with the universal spirit or God was virtually gone. The new limited consciousness of these pitiful creatures trapped them on the physical plane on earth, where they had to live in ignorance and their human or their animal-like intelligence and awareness. They were suddenly isolated from the universal God consciousness and trapped in the lonely anguish of separate consciousness. This separate consciousness gave birth to a son of separation or free will, which is ignorantly used selfishly rather than harmony with the will of God. Ultimately, they would also be trapped into slavery. Evil was spawned by selfishness, but later even greater degree of evil came about, which we will discuss in a later chapter. Yet all selfishness and evil has since mistakenly been blamed on these poor and fortunate first wave humanimals. To be sure, some had horns and tails, cloven hooves, but they have been used as scapegoats and diversions in order for the others, including other regular humans, to avoid taking personal responsibility for the real evil and the real devil, which is selfishness living inside of each human who maintains separate consciousness from oneness of God. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see. Let me see if it goes through. And I'm just posting it, so let's see if it goes. Remember, we were spirits only, very fine, high-frequency vibrational beings with no experience in the physical realm. These humanimals came upon their terrible fate because of a rapid, uncontrolled slowing down of their vibrational frequencies for a purpose of materialization of their spiritual selves into a material plane of earth. It occurred in a way that the way that cut them off from their normal consciousness, like changing the dials on a radio to an area or frequency that had nothing to receive. The internal radio of consciousness was no longer tuned to God. It was materialization that went too far, too deep, and too dense. Slow vibrations of physical plane. When the finer frequencies were cut off, they were cut off from God and the rest of the spiritual creation, and thus the consciousness of the oneness of the universe, the consciousness of God, the universal spirit. This left them with only a separate selfish consciousness that lost touch with the oneness and consciousness of the universal spirit. And it says, why aren't all of us lost and out of touch with God? It is a couple of reasons. So basically it says the second waivers knew they could only help the first waivers if they too materialized into forms that would allow them to work on the lost souls, the humanimal creatures, in their own physical form and dimension, and the Grand Master and the various angelic volunteers knew that in order to do that, it would be required lowering their own vibration towards the physical plane and subsequently lowering their consciousness to some extent. They knew that this was dangerous, and they had to be very careful how they did this and to be careful how deeply they went into physical matter, or they too would become trapped in limited consciousness, just like the second just like as the humanimals were. Thus, the ancient Atlantean teachings describe how the second wave became the first consciously controlled thought, projection, or materialization of a modern human life on Earth, or at least eventually became modern humans as a gradual solidified into the material plane from the spiritual angelic state. The ape-like early human form was actually just eventually chosen by second wavers as a preferred type of physical vehicle to model themselves after, because it allowed for the greatest control and manipulation in the physical plane that would be required to help the first wavers. That is why the scientists cannot find the missing link, because there simply is none. Because while evolutionary change certainly does exist, our present existence on Earth did not invoke evolving for millions of years for apes. And there's different stories that talk about how we were created by these beings, the Anunnaki, and how they gave a little bit more of their DNA to upgrade our template. So, in short, the Atlanteans, which are part of the Anunnaki, did not create human. What they did was they took the being that was already here, which is our ancient ancestors or cousins, captured them, studied them, spliced their DNA, mixed it with theirs, and they came up with another hominid being to help them work and mine gold and help them do things. I know how that sounds. You have to do your own study, your own research, and believe what you will. But that is how we've gotten to this point to where we are. There's a lot in between that I'm missing, but the breadcrumbs are there. I wanted to just do this video and to call out that there is an illusion of separateness when we're all one entity and all one being, having an experience in these different vessels. And so for me, it's a point now where we're believing in our false perception of reality based on a narrative of these beings that have pushed it for thousands of years, at least 6,000 years. And we're being controlled by a negative faction or entities. And until we break free and awake from the slumber, this will continue. But I dare say, based on all the other readings, especially this one, that we're on a time clock, and these custodians have pushed the button for things to expedite. So we need to wake up our brothers and sisters from the sleepy dream. If some people can't get on board, some people don't believe that, they don't have the understanding or the capacity or the knowledge, that's fine. At best, it's entertainment, and you get to see me on camera. My point is that I made these videos for my grandkids later on so they could follow the breadcrumbs, because I can only teach them so much. So they have to be able to be at a point or level of understanding and age before they can deep dive into this meat that I'm putting out there. Baby steps, right? I wanted to read all those books. So again, I read from Lost Teachings of Atlantis, which is my very favorite book. You can tell I've got it all marked up and color-coded. I've given out so many copies of this book, probably 3 or 4. Blackroots Sciences, I think this is volume 1. I have the other volumes here. This version of the Emerald Tablets with Melchizedek, and I have other versions of it. I just chose to read from that one. And then I read from the 4 Agreements, Toltec Wisdom, and then Everything You Need to Know from David Icke. Those are the books that I read from. Everybody has a different perception or a different thought process. And so for me, I like to read and meditate over what I read and take in that knowledge and understand, where I am in my journey, because we all have a journey, make no mistake. And my life is not like yours, but I know that we are all valuable and we're all relevant to what is going on today in these times in 2023. I totally believe in the heart of hearts that humanity can pull this off and make it. We've had multiple resets prior, and each reset becomes worse. And we become a dumbed down version of what we once were because of the sky, they're spraying in the sky, the chemicals in our foods, the GMOs, the frequencies that are used against us. There are a lot of things that are bombarding our bodies and keeping us at a lower state of vibration. And I dare say, from just reading these teachings, the way to get back to the center and balance your left and right brain is to learn how to work the energy from the base of your root chakra all the way up to your crown chakra. This has to be open. It has to be open, and you have to be able to receive as well as communicate with the creator of all, right? The dial has been changed, right? And so we're out of balance or out of frequency. We're not with a oneness anymore. Though I am consciously aware of this and I'm awake, the one thing that we do need to master through all of this, as well as learning how to take care of our organic body, we also need to feed the light body, because it does need minerals, it does need grounding, it does need positive energy and reinforcement. And by all means, it needs to have a quality water, right? And I'm not by no means supporting any brands, but I will tell you that you need to look on the back of the water to see the content levels of the magnesium, the sodium, and so forth. If you're drinking water that doesn't have that breakdown, then you're just basically drinking dead water or tap water, right? Water is part of our lifeblood, if you will. And so we need to be mindful that we cannot eliminate all toxins from our environment, but we can limit as much as possible, right? From putting on what you bathe in, your largest organ, which is your skin, to the deodorants you use, the toothpaste you use, the stuff that you put in your hair and your body. It all affects us vibrationally, and it is. Right now, I've been juicing. I juice twice a day. And then I eat a sensible meal at dinner. And I'm telling you, it's difficult. I can do it, but it is difficult to abstain from certain things and to give up certain things, right? And so I'm on my path, and as well as you're on your path, no judgment. I appreciate all of you all for ducking in and seeing this video. I'm going to log off now and then upload it to YouTube. I wanted to keep it under an hour, and I've succeeded in that. I hope you enjoyed the reading. We just glossed over the surface of some material, but as you can tell, it's all interconnected like a puzzle or a spider web. We're, taking baby steps and building the blocks, but having to digest this information. This is a great book. I actually have listened to it as I fall asleep at night. So, that's great. I also have the audio version of the Lost Teachings of Atlantis as well. And it is a great, great book to read. Ultimately, we want to get back to our being consciously aware and have a direct connection to the creator of all, and understanding that these bodies are illuminated vessels. We carry energy. I think each human body is 7.8 hertz. And when you exit the body becomes lighter because that energy is no longer powering the vessel, right? You were here before and you existed prior to coming into this existence. And those custodians, those that love us so much, the MFers, the money funders, they have set up this matrix of a world where we're in a Truman Show and we're being monitored 24/7. I truly believe that. And I truly believe that we do have a chance to turn things around. We do. It's just whether or not we're willing to put in the work and to do it. So, anyway, I appreciate you guys jumping on here and joining me, and be the change that you want to see all around this world, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. All by myself, I'm working on enlightenment and ascertaining the knowledge and understanding the knowledge and being able to apply it in one's life. That is true power. I love you guys. Have a good afternoon.